Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Member Mackenzie. Ms. Jamke, can I ask that we just in the meantime, just remove the presentation from the screen?
Mackenzie.
My clock says it's 9 o'clock. I wish to welcome all members, all officials, and all guests to the Standing Committee for Health on Wednesday, the 10th of February 2021 at 9 o'clock. Members, I wish to draw your attention to the cardinal rules of WCPP for online conferencing or meetings. I'm sure you are very familiar with that rules by now. So briefly, at the beginning of this meeting, I will ask that all members kindly mute themselves as well as turn off their videos. Members are welcome to turn on their videos as well as their mics when they address the chairperson. The chat function, members, can only be used for a point of order, and please draw my attention by raising your hand as well. Members, I will now ask members to kindly introduce themselves as well as our departmental officials, our guests, and if there's members of the media present as well. Please proceed, members.
Good morning, Ricardo Mackenzie, standing in for Member Botha.
Goeiemôre voorsitter, Regan Allen.
Goeiemôre voorsitter, Rachel Winvogel.
Good morning, Chair Ayanda Barnes.
Thank you, Member Barnes. Is that all members? Thank you very much. Departmental officials?
Good morning, Madam Chair. It's Krish Vallabhji. I'm the Chief Director for Strategy from the Department of Health. I'd also like to table the apology from Dr. Kluti and the Minister there attending the Cabinet Bosparat this morning. Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir. Any other representatives?
Yes, good morning, Chair, and good morning to the members. I apologize, my video function is not so great this morning, but I'm Dr. Mavela, also from the Western Cape Department of Health, Director in Professional Support Services.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Chair. Dan Valentine, I'm the Head of Ministry Health.
Thank you so much. Good morning and a warm welcome to you as well. Any other departmental officials?
Good morning, Chair. Rafika Isaacs, Department of Health, Strategy Cluster.
Thank you so much. Any guests this morning?
Good morning, Chairperson and our portfolio, Damaris Kiewicz, Cape Metropolitan Health Forum.
Good morning, Ms. Kiewicz. Welcome to you as well. Any other guests?
Good morning, Chairperson. Gillian Bosman joining as a guest today. And it's very nice to see Ms. Kiewicz, and we hope to see her soon in person.
Thank you very much, Member Bosman, for attending this meeting as well.
Good morning, Chair. The name is Ray Londos from the Tagworth Sub-District Health Forum as a guest. Thank you very much.
Sir, I didn't quite get your name. Your sound is very much distorted. Do you wish to try again, please?
Yes, my name is Graham Lindorf. I am from the Tygerberg Sub-District, the Forum. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Most welcome. Members, if there's no one else, the apologies received, and we've just heard the Minister and the HOD are currently in Cabinet. We have also received the apology from Member Botha, and Member Mackenzie is standing in. Member Allen will leave the meeting at 10:30 this morning. Are there any other apologies? No one? Thank you very much. Committee, the purpose of today's meeting is to get a briefing from the Department of Health on the implementation of the Western Cape Health Facilities Board and Committees Act of 2016, Act 4 of 2016, and particularly status update on the appointment of clinic committees in the Western Cape, and in terms of Section 5(2) of the Act, which refers to the appointment of members of the Provincial Parliament to hospital boards. Members, I also wish to draw your attention that the WCPP legal advisor, Mr. Marsdorp, has been invited to attend the meeting to answer any questions that members might have on this, on his submission to the committee on the appointment of members of Parliament to hospital boards. And members, you have been furnished with a legal opinion on the 18th of February, on the 18th of January 2021. I'm sure that you have perused that opinion as well. Members, we will now immediately proceed to the presentation by the Department of Health, after which then we will have a question and answer session, and members will then be afforded the opportunity to raise their questions. I just want to alert you once again, members, that you kindly indicate that you want to pose a question by raising your hand. If you do not have the hand raise function, please indicate so in the sidebar. I give over to the Department of Health. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I've asked Nomonde to assist with screen sharing because I have a difficulty with doing that. So thanks very much, Nomonde. Next slide. So I would like to just cover these areas, just pass a few introductory remarks, then just remind ourselves about the legislative framework, to give you an overview of the status of hospital boards and clinic committees, then a status update on the appointments, training update, some of the implementation challenges, and just some concluding remarks. Next slide. So just by way of introduction, just to remind ourselves that we see community involvement in health, in fact, globally, but as well as within the province, as a key ingredient of well-performing health systems. In our long-term vision of Healthcare 2030, we clearly state that functional statutory structures are a key enabling mechanism for community involvement. And we've got the legislative framework passed in 2016 and the subsequent regulations. That's the framework within which we operate. Next slide. So then let's just remind ourselves about the legislative framework. Next slide. So we've been through this many times and it's kind of old news, so we're not going through in great detail, but just to remind ourselves also that the Act does make provision for the clustering of clinic committees and that the provincial minister may determine this considering three criteria: the geographic distance between primary healthcare facilities, the size and distribution of the population served, and the service volume at these facilities. Next slide. So in terms of composition of boards and clinic committees, so on the left-hand side, on the clinic committees itself, it's not more than 12 members. We are reminded that it's one or more municipal councillors from the area in which the clinics are located. Community members must form at least 50% of the total membership of the committee. It will also include the head of the facility or the clinic, or a manager designated by the district health manager. And then, of course, it needs to be South Africans of 18 years and above. That's for clinic committees. For the hospital boards, it's not more than 14 members, and it may include a councillor. Community members, again, must form at least 50%. People with technical expertise from business, law, finance, or accounting, or an area relevant to the board. Head of the hospital, person representing clinical staff and non-clinical staff, and then a member of provincial parliament or a municipal councillor may be appointed. I just draw the attention of the committee here, Madam Chair, that on the composition of the committee, a councillor is a requirement. So a committee could be deemed non-functional or non-fully constituted if you don't have a councillor on the committee. Whereas in the case of the board, it's a may requirement, it's not a must requirement, but there is provision for members of provincial parliament to be appointed, and so is there provision for municipal councillors. Next slide. This is just an extract from the Act itself that speaks to this very matter that the board raised in its letter. So there is provision there in A and B of Section 5.2 that the Minister may appoint a Member of Parliament nominated by the Parliamentary Committee concerned with health matters, which we would interpret as a standing committee that's meeting today. And these nominations must be submitted in writing from the standing committee to the minister, and then the minister could make such an appointment, all the time remembering that we must have the balance of 50% of the committee being, or of the board being from the community. Next slide. So let's just catch up with the current status of where we are with clinic committees and boards. So as far as the clinic committees go, we have about 65 functional committees. We have 13 that are constituted but not functional, meaning that their members have been appointed but they have not met as yet. And then there are 77 that are not constituted and not functional. And the next slide will give you a breakdown per district. So that in total, there ought to be 155 clinic committees in the province. Next slide. So this is just a breakdown. Nomonde, can you make this a bit bigger, please, on that bar at the bottom there? Yeah, not just to your right. Okay. So if you just look at this slide, it just gives you per district. Like if you take the garden route, we have 10 functional, 6 constituted but not functional, and 13 that are not constituted and not functional. So that's the pattern, and those are per district. Central Karoo, similarly 4 and 2. Cape Winelands, 17 functional, 1 constituted but not functional, and 16 neither. West Coast 5, 1 and 16. Overberg 3, 1 and 15, and Metro 26, 4 and 15. So that's the distribution across the districts for clinic committees. We then just turn quickly to boards. So as far as the hospital boards go, there ought to be 45 functional boards in total. We have 33 that are functional, 8 that are not constituted and not functional, and 4 that are constituted but not met yet, not functional. Next slide. Okay, and then this is just a breakdown per district, Madam Chair. I won't read through those numbers, but that's the breakdown per each of the districts regarding hospital boards. So clearly with hospital boards, we've got a much longer history in terms of establishing them. So our performance is much better, and it's a much more stable environment. Whereas clinic committees, it's been the kind of first term that we've been trying to set them up, and they're much larger number of committees as well. Next slide. So just to give you an indication of the number of councillors that have been appointed. So as far as the metro clinic committees go, 51 councillors, and in the rural clinic committees, 76 councillors have been appointed. So then we just want to give you a status about the duration and the terms of office. Next slide. So the majority of the terms of the newly formed clinic committees are due to expire in June, July, or August of this year. Remember, there was a bit of a staggered approach in terms of constituting these committees, but in the middle of this year, many of those their first term comes to an end. So we will be putting a process in place to advertise these posts again, and we will do that via the print media as well as the social media. There'll be a 6 weeks period for nominations, and we would want to encourage communities to nominate people onto committees. So in this group are two categories. One is those that have not been constituted even in the first term. So we want to give it a kind of a renewed bash at trying to reappoint members. And then those that have been in place, but their first term has come to an end. And it might well be that members who have been appointed during the first term could be reappointed for a second term. So that would be part of the considerations going forward. Next slide. And this is just to give you an idea that of the hospital facility boards, 20 out of the 45 will be advertised, and of the clinic committees, 146 out of the 155 would be advertised. So just to give you an update about training. Next slide. So we have used the national material because there's been a national process to develop materials for the whole country. We did feel, however, that our Western Cape legislation and regulations need to be included in the training material. So that took a bit of a while, but that has been concluded. So the material then covers the national health system, health in context, health governance paradigms, information, skills, and values relevant to our governance structures. So it includes all of those. There's been very positive feedback around the training thus far. It's been well presented. The feedback has been positive. And we've had undertaken a survey of the people who've been trained, and it's generally worked well. So the approach we're taking as far as training goes is we are trying to build internal capacity. So we have developed master trainers, and we've got 2 community liaison officers in the metro and 5 in the rural districts. Their training will be concluded by end of this month. And we're also appointing a developer, a master trainer who would assist with just keeping up the capacity and providing mentoring and support. Because we see this as a capacity that will be required on an ongoing basis going forward. Next slide. So just to give you an update on some numbers, the clinic committee members trained, so it's in the metro, it's about 71, in the rural and rural PHC managers and CLOs, 40. And all the training has been moved online because of the COVID climate in which we are operating. We have also included information and training around the PAC COVID guidelines, and that's been offered to clinic committees. And there's a picture of the PAC manual at the bottom, just to give our colleagues a sense of what the COVID implications are and operating in this environment. It also includes some material on vaccinations. Next slide. So some of the implementation challenges. Next slide. So the interest amongst communities to volunteer has really varied from community to community. There have been teething problems to get full functionality of committees as evidenced by the numbers, and that ranges from inadequate numbers of members to lack of quorum for meetings, etc. In some instances, there were challenges for the appointment of councillors to clinic committees. That has got better over time. In some instances, lack of remuneration continues to be seen as a disincentive. There were some setbacks with training, And when we did get this, we had lost one of our master trainers owing to COVID in January, which was quite tragic. And then our rural health services have requested the postponement of training due to the second wave, which was quite a harsh and intense period for the department. And then our community liaison officers have continued to engage communities around vaccination awareness, etc. So we've had to reprioritize our efforts. So those were some of the implementation challenges. So in conclusion, Madam Chair, next slide. So in 2020, we really had to de-escalate on multiple fronts to focus on COVID. In August, September, just after we had come down from the first wave, there was a general discussion in the department to start picking up and catching up with backlogged situations on multiple fronts. And before we knew it, we then experienced a massive second wave, which had much greater intensity than the first wave. And we, of course, had to reprioritize our efforts and our attention to COVID. Now we are starting to come down that second wave, and really there's been a strong sense of in the department, and we had made a decision in the department to undergo a process of intentional grieving, healing, and recovery, remembering that not only there has been tragic loss of staff, but also our staff have been working relentlessly over 2020. There's a huge amount of exhaustion, fatigue, and so one needs to be very, very mindful about that environment. As we enter the next financial year, we have some colliding imperatives coming at us for the forthcoming year, and this could include a possible third wave and the need for contingency planning, because it's unlikely that we will have herd immunity anytime soon in the province. There are non-COVID backlogs from primary healthcare services to elective surgery in hospitals. Trauma will escalate with the lifting of alcohol restrictions. We have a massive vaccination program to be rolled out, nothing like we've done ever before. And then we have severe budget shortfalls that have just been confirmed with the department. So when you put all of that together, it's going to become quite a challenging environment going forward. And that's important context within which we need to do a whole lot of other things, including getting our statutory committees to be functional and operational. We've made good progress in establishing capacity. So we've created an assistant director post in the minister's office. Sean Stacey has been appointed in that regard to support the minister's office. We agreed in the department that we also needed a focal point for statutory structures, and we have agreed to locate that statutory focal point in the Directorate Quality Assurance or Professional Support Services. And Mr. Ndoda Mavela is the director there, and he's on this call. From my office, Rafika Isaacs, who's my office manager, has also been supporting this process, and she's on this call as well. We've recruited community liaison officers within districts, and they've been undergoing the master training as well. And we intend then to try and get point people in each of the sub-districts, so the local engagement could be enhanced, and that would be part of the strategy going forward. And then, of course, building internal training capacity to the master training program. So that, I think there's been reasonable progress in that regard. Community involvement remains an important pillar of PHC and health systems, and the minister, I must say, has led from the front in engaging communities. In all of her visits, she makes sure she gets to speak to and listen to clinic committee members, hospital board members, etc., wherever she goes out on site visits. The statutory are always informed of her visits. She recently undertook a Volumpilo roadshow to engage statutory structures, and in there, some of the main areas that came up for discussion was return to comprehensive services, because, like I've said, suggested, COVID did result in some backlogging of non-COVID services. Fear and safety amongst staff, also in terms of accessing health services, and then bridging the gap between the department and the community. So those were some of the main themes that came out in the Volumpilo roadshow. So, Madam Chair, we're going to approach 21-22, sorry, with renewed vigor and efforts to establish functional structures within the context that embraces us for the new financial year. We certainly want to try and get much more of these structures more fully functional and operational in the coming year. Let me stop there. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. If there's questions, I'm happy to answer. Thanks.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Vallabji, and thank you so much for that commitment in terms of the functionality of structures. Members, I will now afford Advocate Maasdorp an opportunity to give input.
Thank you, Chairperson. My name is Romeo Maasdorp. I'm legal advisor at Provincial Parliament. As Chairperson and members may know, I submitted my legal opinion in this regard as far as the appointment of members to a board is concerned. I am of the view now, Chairperson, that members have received my opinion. I'm available for questions in this regard. However, just having listened now to the first presenter, who has in fact touched on the issue of appointments, him being from the department, in as much as I'm available and ready to address questions which members may have, I would think, Chairperson, with respect to your committee, that it may be even prudent for the committee to address questions now for my attempt to respond to that. And in addition, since we have the benefit and value of expertise present from the department, that they too can assist with addressing those questions. If there is a difference in our respective answers or opinions, this would be the perfect opportunity and platform to address those. Indeed, it may even be prudent for the committee to request further information or further research. So I'm not sure, Chairperson, I'm taking guidance from you now in respect to my opinion. I can certainly give a summary, but I would hate to do that because I would not want to think that the extent and expansiveness of my opinion can justifiably be syncopated into a summary and still do justice to it. I do know that the members had the benefit of my opinion, but having said that, I can certainly attempt to do a summary, even maybe for the benefit of our guests, so that indeed, if there is a question in this regard, they can certainly have a bit of background as well. I'm in your hands, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Advocate Maasdorp. I think you would notice that the committee did cover all angles, having you here as well as the department. And I think for the benefit of our guests, I would really ask you to give us a brief summary, a minute and a half at least, just for the benefit of our guests as well. Thank you.
I think the challenge lies in the minute and a half, but let me accept that challenge, Chairperson. My brief, colleagues, was to explore and give an opinion in respect of the appointment of members of Parliament to a health facility board, and in particular to focus on the provision of Section 5, and more in particular Section 5.2 of the Western Cape Health Facilities Boards and Committees Act. I am of the view that, and really, Chairperson, I'm really jumping over lots of hurdles now, but I am of the view that it is, as the first presenter has indicated, that it is very much a discretion of the minister as to whether or not to appoint provincial parliament members. We do know, as we have heard, and as the Act very expressly provides for, that there are certain appointments which must be made, and those relate to the number of people or the number capacities, if you like, that are articulated in the Act, whether it's community members, hospital officials, etc. But when it comes to 5(2), 5 subsection 2 of the Act, which provides that, and I'm paraphrasing now, that the Minister may appoint members of Parliament nominated by the Parliamentary Committee responsible for health. That leads me to infer that the appointment of members from the Provincial Parliament is a discretion. If we say that, in other words, for a board to be properly and legitimately, in terms of the provisions of the Act, constituted, it does not need a member of Parliament. It is simply a discretion of the Minister to add a member of Parliament. Now, what does that suggest in operational terms? Obviously, if it is the Minister's call, the Minister's discretion, then until such time that the Minister exercises that discretion, the Standing Committee for Health Matters is not activated. Until such time that the Minister exercises that discretion, the Standing Committee has no responsibility, no obligation to come up with a nomination. That's the gist of what my research has yielded. Now, if one looks at the totality of the Act and how the text is drafted, then that inference that the committee is to remain inactive as far as appointment nomination is concerned becomes more underlined. The onus then shifts, Chairperson, because how would the committee know that the Minister will or has exercised that discretion? And that is where the first presenter and his colleagues may assist the committee, because presumably there would be a communication, a notice, a directive of sorts that advises the particular Standing Committee to present a nomination to the committee. So maybe the colleague, the presenter, can give us an insight as to the intra-health department / ministry dynamics which will have to be in place in order for the Minister to exercise a discretion, and in turn and in consequence to activate the Standing Committee. Maybe they issue directives, maybe there's a communication, a protocol between the Standing Committee and the Minister in anticipation of a appointment, as a result of which a committee must then come up with a nomination. So I would be quite pleased if the presenter and his colleagues can assist us with that kind of, if you like, inside view of the dynamics that may happen. And just to maybe round off, Chairperson, I did raise an observation in my opinion, and in short it is this: and I'm just scanning through it very briefly. In short, it is this: the Act says that the Standing Committee may nominate a member of the Provincial Parliament to be appointed as a board member, words to that effect. And like I said, this is an observation in passing. The Act is not prescriptive in the sense that that member of Parliament must necessarily be drawn from the Standing Committee on Health. In fact, it only says the Minister may appoint a member nominated by the Standing Committee on Health. So I think that's a beautiful construction of the text of the Act, because surely to appoint a member, or nominate rather, a member to a board, a committee would be sufficiently mature, sufficiently circumspect, and sufficiently open-minded to nominate that person with the best capacity to represent on a board. That's why I think, and I said earlier, that's why I think it's a beautiful construction of the text of the Act. That's why the Act leaves it open, that the member may not necessarily come from the committee, but may come from the general plenary of members with the best suited capacity and potential expertise to represent on a board. That in passing. So two things. One, it's a discretion of the minister. In fact, like I said, in my opinion, the minister may never even exercise that discretion. But if the minister does exercise that discretion, I would like to know how that discretion is translated, is transferred, is communicated to the committee. And secondly, my observation in passing, that a member nominated need not come from the Standing Committee responsible for health matters. That in summary, Chairperson. Yes, thank you.
Advocate Maasdorp, thank you very much for your input. Member Windvogel.
I couldn't hear some parts of the overview of Mr. Maasdorp, but it's fine, Chair.
Okay, Mr. Maasdorp. Just Ms. Advocate Maasdorp just gave us a brief summary on the document, the legal opinion that was provided to all members. Members, I will now open for a question session. I recognize Member Mackenzie, Member Windvogel, Member Barnes. In that order, please, members. And then Member Allen. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for the presentation. I just looked at my own minutes because I was privileged to be part of the last Parliament, and I should look at the minutes that I just found in my inbox from the 17th of April 2018, which was chaired by Member Botha, who's not with us today, unfortunately. And going back to meeting on the 18th of August 2020, and looking at when we passed this act in 2016, I think, and then 27, that was the year of the local elections, and then 27, the regulations were done. And some of the challenges, and I appreciate what the doctor has said now, were exactly the same challenges that we experienced in 2017, 2018. We're now in 2021. Now, one can forgive from the lockdown end of March last year to where we are today, and where the department's resources and the staff and had to be focused towards COVID-19, and obviously now the vaccine rollout. But on your presentation and looking at the notes, and I guarantee you, if I go in depth in my minutes, which I don't have the time to do for now, I will find the same concerns that was raised. I mean, they are not functional. Some are not constitutional, not functional. Training need to be provided. These are all the notes, if I see the minutes from end of 2017, 2018, and then last year as well. What has changed since then? And a year from now, are we going to be back here with the same problem? Because even during COVID-19, now is the perfect time for these clinic committees, for these hospital boards. I was privileged enough to serve on the Mitchells Plain hospital boards to provide oversight, and those technical experts that can or community members that can liaise with the community during this difficult time, explaining to be your mouthpiece of the department and the community's mouthpiece on this board. That would have been the perfect time to have them functional right now. But unfortunately, it's not. And I'm not even going to pretend I'm happy because I'm not. I mean, they're not functioning, they're in constitution, some are constituted and not functional. And it's just, like I said, it's been coming for years now. And it's, to be honest with you and to be frank, I mean, it's a failure from the department. I mean, it's now 4 years since we passed this act. And like I said, I was privileged to be part of the committee that passed this act. And I would really like us to go, and also Chairperson, in the request, I would have appreciated if one could get a list of the boards that were not functional and the clinics that were not functional, because that would have helped us as public reps, because I know I certainly nominated people for the Mitchell's Plain Hospital boards, and also nominated councillors. So I would have loved to see which ones are functional, not functional, constituted, not constitutional, constituted. And that is unfortunately not present in this presentation. So one of our recommendations would be that we get that list. And I have to be honest and frank, I'm actually quite disappointed, honestly. I'm quite disappointed with some of the challenges. If I look at the minutes from the 17th of April, 2018, that was also done by Dr. Valabi, by the way, giving us details. And the legal argument on the constitution of the board, I don't think we're there at that point, because some of us were privileged to be part of the committee, understand how and why. But I think the operational side, it's a serious concern to me. And given that we are right now, those boards would have been, those that are not functional, would have been the perfect tool to be that interaction between communities and the hospital, particularly where there are concerns. The purpose this Act was drawn up is to get community involvement. And during this COVID-19 period, community involvement would have been perfect. That's obviously my opinion when we passed this Act. So the presentation done by the good doctor last year, if I just look at some of the notes, some of the concerns that he raised about not getting people involved, struggling to get people involved, and we as public reps also need to up our game to ensure we get more councillors and public reps involved. But it's exactly the same presentation. If I just look at my own notes as well on the side here, comments from Dr. Kluter that I made here. So nothing has changed since we were a year ago. And that list of see which hospitals are functioning and not functioning would have also helped me understand, so we can go into those clinics and hospitals. And I appreciate that you've appointed somebody to do so, and condolences to the master trainer that passed away. But where are we in that process? When are we appointing another master trainer to ensure the training gets done? And a question, Chair, what tools are we going to provide or are providing now with COVID-19? I'm, for example, sitting at home now on the Zoom meeting. Are we equipping those clinic committees and members to hold those hospitals accountable? Because right now it is the right time, particularly with the vaccine rollout. And to be frank, Chair, I am disappointed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Member Mackenzie. Member Van Vogel.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I welcome the report or the presentation. My question is on page 9, and if you look at page 11, I think it's in line what Mr. Member Mackenzie is saying. If I look at at page 9, out of the 155 functional clinic committees, only 65 are functional, and which is less than half of the total that should be functional, and this is a huge concern. Now, what I'm going to say is something that I mentioned in the previous meeting when we were dealing with this issue. And I don't understand why can't we use those good practices of those functional committees to train these non-functional committees? Why can't we use, because I believe in those committees we do have capable people. Remember, to have something on paper and to implement is two different things. And what this is saying to me is that those people who are functional know how to implement what is expected from them. So why can't we use them to train or to engage those other people the other non-functional committees. Then, Chairperson, on page on page 13, the clinic committees, the councillors on clinic committees. The presenter mentioned that it's 51 in the metro and then 76 in the rural. I just need clarity there, Chair. Those councillors, are they part? Because if you look at the numbers that are functional and you look at the councillors who are deployed to these clinic committees, it's 51 and 76, and you don't even have so many functional committees. So I just need clarity. Are they part of the functional and non-functional structures? For now, that's all for now. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Winvogel, Member Barnes, and then Member Allen.
Thank you, Chairperson, for the opportunity. I think Member Mackenzie has said it all for me. I must align myself with him because where I am currently, I'm as frustrated as him. Because when I go through this report, what I realize is that really it's the same. The statistics that we are given, it's like the same presentation. There's no change. Now you are asking yourself, for this time, what has been happening? For example, the functioning of the clinic committees and the hospital boards. How would you describe functioning, especially now during the time of COVID-19? How have they been utilized, the committees? What was their role and their duty? What impact did they make? I would want to know that. Second to that, there's also another slide that shows not constituted but functional. Also there, if we can get an in-depth understanding as to what is meant by functional, because I don't understand the functional part. My second question, Chair, would be on the extent of the use of the clinic boards and the hospital boards. How are their inputs being used? Who gets to decide that as this board, this is the matter that they are bringing forth, what is right and what should not be done? The reason I'm asking this question, it might sound as a very stupid question, but Chair, I'm one of the members that has come up with a number of matters during this COVID. In fact, before COVID, I have 2 years a request that I've put to the department on a matter of a mortuary. Till today, it's 2 years, Chair. No response, nothing. Now you are asking yourself, if myself as a member of this legislative parliament is waiting for 2 years for one answer, how much more to the clinical board or hospital committees? Who is getting to decide what and when or how? On the last slide, there's an indication of lack of remuneration. Now, what I want to know, why are members not being remunerated? If perhaps we can get an elaboration of that. My last question, Chair, will be on the appointment of provincial legislators. How many legislators are appointed? I understand that Member Mackenzie has been there, and also Advocate Masdorp in his briefing to us, he's giving us indication as to that Minister may appoint using her own discretion, and yet at the same time, it is said that this standing committee must give input as to who. But I'm not very clear. But before I go further into my deliberation, can I just get a reflection as to how many members of legislatures are serving? Because I'm reading 14 may be appointed. Who is serving and where and for how long and how is it going to happen? Maybe I would follow up after that. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Member Barnes. Member Allen.
Thank you, Chairperson. Allow me to rephrase some of my questions as I've been partly covered already. Firstly, I would like to commend and probably get further information in the future in terms of the process of intentional grieving, healing and recovery. From where I'm sitting, I can understand that the healthcare response to the pandemic obviously depends upon a mentally and physically healthy workforce. And obviously, if we look at interventions, the proposed interventions, it would be good to hear that in the future on what that process actually entailed. But to come back to the questions, And as members have elaborated, I would like to then ask, in terms of the process that was undertaken by the department to constitute both the clinic committees and the hospital boards, what other steps has been taken besides advertisements in order to get community members involved, etc.? Besides sending out an advertisements via social media or via the print media or radio, what other steps have been taken, if any? And then the second one, whether the department chairperson has been able to identify, and these questions are latching onto some of the information and questions that other members posed already, but in terms of whether the department has been able to identify shortcomings within clinics or hospitals, and if that can be somehow tracked back or correlated back to the fact that a particular clinic or board does not have a functional committee during this time, whether the department has been able to make those connections in terms of if shortcomings, in terms of public engagement, in terms of anything that happened during the COVID, has the department been able to look at back to the fact that that not having a board or a committee could have played a role in the shortcomings? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Member Allen. Members, I have been covered largely by Member McKenzie in terms of I need to raise my concern as well. And I think disappointment, to be quite honest, in terms of the functionality, and we all note the importance of these various structures within community and in order to better the healthcare service in the province. I've also been covered by Member Allen in terms of what other measures are the department putting in place, since it has been for years and it seems that the challenge continues in terms of functionality, getting proper representation on these various committees and boards. What else has the department initiated? So let us conclude with the first round of questions, members. I will now afford the department the opportunity to answer those questions. If members do have follow-up questions, they are then welcome to raise them. Members, I just also would love to give the opportunity to our guests after members have concluded to also raise their questions or their concerns with regards to what was presented this morning. I think it's very important that we also provide them with the opportunity. So having that in mind, members, also be then mindful of your follow-up questions. Should we be able, in terms of our privileges, perhaps transfer it into a resolution or questions, written questions as well. Thank you very much. Dr. Vallabhji.
Thanks. Thanks very much, Madam Chair and members. So, Madam Chair, with your permission, should I comment on the legal opinion expressed by Advocate Maasdorp as well?
You may do so.
Okay. So let me start there, and then I'll come to the specific questions by members. So as far as the appointment of members of the legislature onto hospital boards, again, you know, like Member McKenzie has referred to, I think this matter also has been discussed several times in this committee, if I can recall, and it seems as if we kind of in a chicken and egg kind of situation. But in my view, I think the Act makes a clear provision for nomination of MPLs onto hospital boards. So there's a clear provision in the Act, and that lays the basis for this committee to make nominations to the minister. And of course, the minister has the authority in the Act to make the appointments. But from the nomination process, I think this committee has that discretion already in the Act. And I'm not sure if there is further steps required from the department side to enable that. And if that is so, maybe that could be discussed, and then we could respond accordingly. So that would be my response to the issue of the MPLs and their nominations. Coming back to the comments raised by honourable members, I think it's fair to say I personally also am not pleased with the progress that we've had, and it has been coming from before the COVID period, but the COVID period over the last 12 to 14 months has clearly been a very difficult period. But the member is right that even before that, we have struggled for a variety of reasons. And I think there are a couple of things in this regard. So the first thing is on the department side, in terms of having a clear focal point to be able to coordinate our response in this regard, having additional capacity to do this amidst everything else. We've taken some steps in that regard and what I discussed in the presentation. So we've made a clear-cut decision to add a person in the minister's office to assist with that, because the minister, like I said, leads from the front on this, going to sites, meeting with members, etc. So we have appointed somebody in that regard. We've made a decision in the department because there are multiple touch points. There is training happening in one section of the department. There are policy aspects that takes place in another. There's a connecting point with the various services and the districts that are required. There's a connecting point with legal services. So we made a decision then that because of that, we should have a focal point at head office level where this comes together. And that decision was also made in the last year, that it will fall under Mr. Ndoda Mavela in the Directorate Professional Support Services. I think that's an important thing to help bring things together. So those were the steps we took, and then the appointment of community liaison officers at the local level, at district level, was again another capacity issue that was quite important, and they're also taking on the function of training and being trained to do that. So that's from the capacity and that's from the department's point of view. However, there are a range of other factors. I mean, we did struggle with the appointment of councillors from local government and just getting the councils to make the nominations and go through the process to get that. We did struggle with that initially. I think we've crossed that hump and we've done reasonably okay in that regard. One of the questions was, the numbers don't add up. And that's because it does not mean that for every structure where a councillor is appointed, that structure has been necessarily functional. So it doesn't mean those numbers need to add up completely. So you could have a clinic committee where a councillor has been appointed, but the committee itself has not been functional, has not met as yet. So that was an issue. But most importantly, at community level, right? In terms of getting nominations and generating the interest for people to put their hands up to be on these structures, I think that's been the big area. And I think you would recall, Honourable Member Mackenzie seems to have a better memory than myself on this. But if we right at the beginning of the process, there were issues around the nomination process, and we then had to go through a process of trying to simplify that and make it easy as possible to allow people to put their hands up to nominate. But I think that's the area that we require to do more work. The other area is we need local capacity and local point people in the department at sub-district level, so that there is a person there who locally engages with communities and makes sure that these committees are all functional and we're getting them up and running. And I think that's another gap that we intend plugging quite soon. So while we've got people at head office and while we've got people at district level appointed, we need to go one level down at our 32 sub-districts to have point people. It doesn't have to be necessarily additional appointments, because there are budget constraints to this, but even if they are designated people, existing designated people who take on this responsibility, I think that would make a big difference in that regard. And then my last comment from a general point of view is that I think, Madam Chair, we would welcome the support, right, to try and get members to be nominated to stand on these committees. And we would like to believe that each of the members here could assist in that regard. We would certainly want to deepen our endeavors in this regard. And one of the members asked about the issue of how do we go beyond adverts, right? So it's not only the adverts in the print media, we also put this on social media. The minister in her visits plays a big role in trying to get the word out there and to encourage people to stand. Like I said, she's undertaken a roadshow recently, which was specifically around the statutory structures, right? So it's another attempt at really getting people to stand for these structures. We at the local level in our facilities, we put these adverts up in our notice boards, and we ask our facility staff to encourage people to also get onto these committees. So those are some of the measures that we put in place. I'm just trying to see if I've covered those in general, Madam Chair. I like the idea, and thank you very much, Member Van Vogel, about the idea of good practices from functional committees being shared with other committees, and that's something that we will definitely pick up, because the peer-to-peer learning could work well, and we could use the training sessions to share some of that. So we'll definitely pick up on that. Yeah, in terms of how are the inputs utilized, I think the issue is that these are local structures. So the local facility management is meant to respond to these issues and concerns that are raised at the clinic committee or the hospital board, but also being mindful that these are statutory structures appointed by the minister, so they also have direct access to the minister's office also. So that's how we see that. The specific issue of the mortuary that was raised, I'm not aware of the details, and if Member Barnes could share that, I could try and follow that up specifically. The lack of remuneration, I think that was right from the time when the Act was created. We had lots of debates around that, and this is meant to be a voluntary exercise and not paid jobs to be created on clinic committees and hospital boards. It was meant to be a voluntary exercise. And what we then did was we put provision for S&T allowances to be paid for people to come to meetings, etc., but not to get paid for their time on the clinic committees and the boards. I think I've largely covered it, Madam Chair, unless I'm on the issue of the process of intentional grieving, recovery and healing. I think what we have done is it's really just taken the form of having staff sessions, right? And it's been virtual sessions, but our clinicians and our nurses, etc., have really appreciated the opportunity of us just, connecting between the senior management and the staff at large. And just, remembering, creating a space for people to talk about how they feel about it. So it's taken that form in the main. We've organized some of that centrally, and some of that has happened locally. So that's the main form. But other than that, we've also put an employee assistance program in place, and that's been actively used, and it provides counseling and support to colleagues on the ground. So that's the form in which that has taken. I think I've largely covered it, Madam Chair, and please remind me if I've not, but I think I have. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vallabhji. Advocate Marsdorp, is there any issue that you would like to attend to at this point?
Maybe just the following observation. Chairperson, at the risk of repeating what I said earlier, but now in response to the presenter's second input, there's a reason why the literal text of this Act is what it is. There's a reason why the text of this Act provides for a discretion to the minister. What I seem to pick up from the presenter's understanding is that the committee must make a nomination period. That nomination must be communicated to the minister, and it will then sit there until the discretion is exercised. That seems to be, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding of the presenter's understanding. That's not, in my view, the textual and contextual inference of the Act. If it was so urgent that a committee must make a nomination, regardless of whether the minister has discretion or not, or has exercised the discretion or not, it should have been written like that. What it says now, and these acts are deliberately articulated in the form and letter as they are. The Act says the following people must be appointed, and it gives an obligation to the minister. The following may, meaning all sorts of other things, meaning there's no compulsion to make an appointment. Why then, if there's no compulsion to make an appointment, must a committee be seized with the task now to make a nomination? On the contrary, one would envisage that a obligation should rest at the side of the ministry to, once the minister decides to exercise the discretion, to there and then only activate the committee. Let's have a scenario that where the committee now makes a nomination of a member to the minister, but the minister has no inclination in the medium term to make an appointment of a member of parliament. No inclination. Yet the nomination sits there with the minister. Now, at some point, the minister wants to make an appointment and exercise the discretion, and looks at the nominations sitting with the minister that was sent way ago already, only to find that that member has resigned as a member, has died as a member, has been recalled by his or her party as a member, and then the process must start from scratch. That would be a nonsensical dynamic to apply the Act in that way. That's why I'm saying the text is very deliberate and, in fact, quite unambiguous. The minister must make certain appointments, and when the minister wants to make another appointment, when she has the discretion to exercise, then the committee is activated. That's why I said earlier, surely, and if there isn't, then there must be an inter-ministry protocol that will activate the ministers, they'll activate the committee if the minister has decided to exercise their discretion. Otherwise, we make nominations to the minister, and the nominations sit there ad infinitum, potentially, because there's no compulsion on the minister to make an appointment of a member of parliament. I think the presenter's understanding is flawed, because the Act in its text, even in its context, does not envisage a situation where a nomination is made into oblivion until one day the minister exercises discretion. That's not what I get from the Act. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Advocate Marsdorf, for your input. Members, are there any follow-up questions from your side? Member Mackenzie?
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Dr. Valaji, for that input. I just want to check with the doctor, how do we take this forward? Because unfortunately, we are where we are today. How do we take this forward expeditiously to ensure that we get those clinical committees that are non-functional, non-constitutional, the boards that are non-functional, non-constitutional? How do we get that going as urgent and as quick as possible? Because that will be a great eye and ear for government to have those individuals, experts or community members on these boards working with the respective community. How do we do it as soon as possible? Because it is quite a matter of urgency. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Mackenzie, Member Barnes, and then Member Van Vogel.
Thank you, Chairperson, for allowing me the opportunity to do a follow-up. I think on my first questions, I had two direct questions. The first one was with regard to the appointment of the members of Parliament into the committees. I asked how many were appointed or that are still appointed. I'm a bit worried because now we are discussing the legal matter of the appointments. However, I do realize there were already members that were appointed, and we are fortunate today to have Member Mackenzie in the House that is also or was part of this committee. Maybe he can help us, excuse me, on explaining how the process unfolded previously, because it seems like now it's a new process, but it was already there. Perhaps Member Mackenzie can help the presenter as to how these appointments happened. My last one, Chair, was the question when I asked also the department if they can just give me a description or an example, how do they describe a functioning committee? Because I'm not clear as to the definition of functioning of committees where I'm sitting, I don't see the functioning. Maybe I'm a bit arrogant, but I would like to get a more detail. How do they describe functioning in this case? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Barnes. Member Van Vogel.
Yeah, Chair, mine is a small input. I think for me, what is important is that we need a monitoring system with this clinic committees and hospital boards. So perhaps the presenter can tell us, do they have a monitoring system? And if not, I think it's important that we put such system in place to monitor in terms of the function of those different structures. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Member Van Vogel. Members, you may lower your hands now. I think just for the department as well, just to provide clarity. The months that were mentioned, June, July, and August, is it June to August or within that month? Which month is it? And is this reference to the lapsing of those various structures? Please, Dr. Vallabji.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So let me just. So I hear Advocate Mastop, and I think we can pick up on that, and I'll pick it up with the Minister. But I can also ask Douglas, who's from the Minister's office, to respond also on the issue of the MPLs and how many of them have been appointed to date. So I'll ask Douglas to comment on that. On the issue of next steps, Member Mackenzie raised that. I think we certainly want to do a few things. First of all, and I think it was raised also, is there a list of which clinic committees and hospital boards are not functional? So we do have a database, and also answers the question about is there a monitoring system. So we do have a database of which committees are constituted, which are functional, which are not, etc. So we can make that available, and that's a good starting point because it helps us to focus our minds on where the issues and the problems are. So I think that's the immediate starting point, is to identify which areas we need to focus on. The second thing is, like I mentioned earlier on, we are in the process of raising with the district managers that we would really like designated persons in each of the sub-districts that can locally follow up on this, because this is it's difficult to do this from head office. You really need local perseverance and follow up and engagement with community structures, etc., to get this going. So we intend to do that quite quickly. Then, Madam Chair, in terms of your question, so all the committees were not appointed on the same date. So some of them, their term, the 3-year term, comes to an end in June, some in July, some in August. So that was the point that we made in the slide. But it's in that period that a lot of these terms come to conclusion over that 3-month point. So we we're going to get a process going to start reappointing these structures. And I think it's a good time to give it really a fresh injection of effort and intervention and energy to really get these going to the next level. So that's there. So Douglas, can I ask you to just comment on the, on the issue of functioning committees? When we refer to functioning committees, it's about committees having a quorum and having met and minutes taken, etc. So there's evidence of functionality. That's what we refer to when we say functioning, honourable member. Let me ask Douglas to comment on the issue of the MPLs. Thanks, Douglas.
Thank you, Krish. Member Philander, as you would know, in the previous term, the previous act, the Hospital Facility Boards Act, was still current. And in that act, it said that the minister could appoint. So she appointed members, and most hospital boards had MPLs on, which she just appointed. With the new term and the new act, the minister did not appoint, because she has also mentioned in previous meetings with this committee that she is awaiting the nomination from the current committee, which she has not received as in yet. So I don't think there's an unwillingness of the minister to appoint, but she is awaiting from this committee to give her nominations so that she can review and appoint. I hope that is clear. If you don't mind, I just want to make two other comments on what Krish has said. He mentioned that the boards and committees are being monitored. From the ministry itself, the functionality of all boards and committees are monitored from the office. It happens on a weekly basis, and there is a list of how exactly boards and committees are functioning. And on that, I also would like to note there was a question of one of the members of what is the value of the boards during this COVID time, where we need to note, for instance, Victoria Hospital Board got a donation of R1 million, which could assist the hospital with COVID care, and that time it was used for PPE, etc. during the first wave. I'm also aware of Cobrema Hospital that have a program in place of staff support during this COVID times. And that is just some of the work that the boards and committees have been doing, and also to have a cross communication or have a community of practice for boards and committees. So from the ministry side also, we have various WhatsApp groups where we are connecting facility boards and clinic committees, that is in a district or in a sub-district, so that these committee members can communicate with each other, share their learnings, and how they can improve and assist each other. Thank you, member.
Thank you very much, Dr. Douglas, for your input and your comments as well. Members, last round for members. Anything from your side? Member Barnes.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to satisfy myself. I've heard now the speaker previously saying that the minister appointed in the previous term and she's waiting on the board, which I'm happy now to hear that the committee will at least be having an input. Just one question. Is there a terms of reference used to the appointment of the members of parliament to be on or to be serving on these boards? What is used? How is the guidelines on the appointment between when the final decision, in fact, let me put it like this, let me rephrase. On the final decision of appointing a member, what terms of reference is used, Chairperson? That is my question for now.
Thank you, Member Barnes. Member Windvogel.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'm not sure. My question was not answered, because the reason why I'm saying the monitoring system is very important, because what we are doing as a department, we establish those boards and we are gone. Then after a review, after a report giving, then you realize a lot of these structures are not functional because there was no structure who monitors the performance of those different structures. Thank you, Chairperson. I really need an answer on that.
Dr. Valabji.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So I'll get Douglas to comment on the guidelines for appointing by the ministers. He can comment on that. As far as the monitoring system goes, so like I said, there is a system. That's what Douglas was referring to. So there is a system that we can pick up which is functional and which is not functional. The question of follow-up to that, where it's not functional, is the point that I made earlier on, that I think we need to tighten up on that locally. And if we get a person in each of the sub-districts who can follow that up, I think that will be closing the loop in that regard. So that would be my response to the member Winfogel. Thanks.
Dr. Newman.
Member Philander, on Dr. Valabji, if you would allow that from the ministry, we will send guidelines through to the committee regarding the appointment of members of the committee or MPLs to the facility boards.
Thank you very much. Members, thank you very much. That concludes the questions for members, and I'm very much sure that we can, whatever arise or you still want to be addressed, we can do so in terms of our privileges. I would like to ask at this point, any of our guests have an input or comment or question? Ms. Kivitz.
Thank you, Member Philander, Chairperson. I think it's like Member Mackenzie has said. I mean, when I saw this on the website, I thought myself, oh my gosh, 11. I have a voice note on my phone from an appointed committee in Macassar asking me, Mrs. Kivitz, how can you assist us? I refer them to the department because that is the role of the department. I also have the evidence of a response out of the minister's office to a committee in the south that is actually not functioning, but according to the department, it's a functioning committee. But the committee doesn't meet. There's no minutes. There's no attendance register. There's not even a member. There's only one person. So one person cannot constitute a committee. And I think what we as the Cape Metropolitan Health Forum has asked the standing committee is for the department to come and, because we've been in existence, the Cape Metropolitan Health Forum with the district health forums and the clinic committees has been in existence for years. It has worked because there has been accountability from the department side. Now, to who are the department accountable? The department does the annual review report on its own. It's only the converted in the room. The committees, clinic committees, the hospital boards are not there to raise the questions. We've seen it in Gaudini last year. Many of the people that was at that session, they did not really understand what their role and function was. The training that has been done, the appointment of the community liaison officers, where was the adverts placed? How was the people appointed? Is it people with an understanding of what health committees are all about? Or is it just people that needs to fulfill a duty because the department needs to tick a box? And I think that are the critical issues that raises a very serious concern for us that has been part of this journey for many years. We see the cracks. We try to address it with the department. The Tygerberg sub-district had a meeting with the minister and Dr. Kluter on the 15th of May last year. All we asked was acknowledge those that has fulfilled a role. We can see it in Google Air too. Noem Day, she comes out of the Metropolitan Health Forum Committee, and because she wants to make sure that the Klipfontein corridor works, she's still actively involved. The new remuneration that we are talking about, the committees are not asking for a salary. The committees are asking, please pay our out-of-pocket expenses. And the department in the past 4 to 5 years have not done that. So the presentation that has been presented to the Portfolio Committee today is the same presentation that has been presented to the Portfolio Committee in 2016, just after the Act has been implemented, as well as 2017 and as well as 2019. I've got the proof thereof. So we come back year or every second year and we deal with the same concerns. So what we would like to see as the Cape Metropolitan Health Forum, in partnership with the Portfolio Committee, is that the department needs to go back and look at what has worked and what has not worked. And what have not worked is the reason that why we have an amendment to the Act. Yes, the Cape Metropolitan Health Forum were not a logistic framework or a legitimized body, but it functioned optimally with resources from the department to make sure there's engagement at all 3 levels, local, at sub-district level, and at provincial level. And it has worked for more than 20 years. So now we're 5 years into the new Act and we don't have a trace of something that has worked. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kivitz. We value your input immensely. Mr. Lindo.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. I fully agree with what my chairperson from the Cape Metropolitan says. What I'm worried about is last year we met with in the same forum, and Dr. Kuti then committed himself to, in order to assist with setting up these committees, these clinic committees, to meet with myself and Damaris and to look at what worked and what didn't work. The department knows exactly how well these clinic committees worked in the past, prior to when they disabled the Cape Metro Forum as well as the sub-districts in favor of the health districts, that the health councils, the district health councils that they wanted to set up that never really worked. So they know what worked and they know what to do, and they know that we are able to can do it because we still very, very, very much in these health facilities and assist our communities wherever we are. They also know why our communities doesn't want to be part of this existing clinic committees the way it is set up, because we've never been people that gets nominated into. We believe in being elected so that you are then accountable to the person that elects you into it. So they know why people are not doing it, but they continue to go on the path that they're going on, citing that it's a lack of money. Money for us has never been a problem. We've been doing voluntary work for years and we still will do it. And there's people that will still do it. If they are just willing to come to the community that they kicked up.
Mr. Lindo, we have lost you there.
Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, sir. We were unable to hear the last part of your comment.
So what I was just saying is that the department fully knows where this whole thing went wrong in terms of community participation. They must just come back to us because we're willing to set up these structures. They will be functioning optimal because they have been functioning optimal all the time. Come to us, we know what's going on in our communities, and we will work to make sure that it works very well. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lindo. We do value your input as well. Dr. Valabji, any comment from your side?
Thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks to the colleagues. I think the strongest point I can draw from the comments is that there's a shared commitment and a shared objective of really valuing community involvement, and that's our common starting point. I think there is a lot of positive experience that we can draw from. I will definitely pick up with Dr. Kluti and I'm sure Douglas with the Minister, and we must really look at, like I said, there's an opportunity to really take this to another level, and in that process, really look at engaging colleagues like Demaris and Mr. Lindhoff and others to really find how we can turn this around and take it to another level. I have covered and I have kind of considered that I think the progress is, we're not pleased with the progress. We think we could do much better, and we need to do much better. So that I concede. And yeah, so let me leave it at that, Madam Chair, rather than going into all of the specifics. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Valabji. Colleagues and members of the committee, at this point, I wish to conclude this session and thank the Western Cape Health Department and all the officials present, as well as Advocate Maasdorp, as well, very importantly as well, our guests today, Mrs. Kivitz and Mr. Lindo. Thank you so much for your valuable input as well. The committee will definitely elaborate further on this matter in terms of our resolutions and the way forward, to the best interest, of course. At this point, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for the information provided. And you may now excuse yourself, and wishing you a blessed and a lovely day further. Please be safe. Can I please ask that members do not exit the meeting, please? We still have some homework that we need to attend to.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Members, on the next point, in terms of recommendations and resolutions, in terms of what was presented to us today. Any member? Member Mackenzie?
Thank you, Chairperson. We need to get the list of the non-functional boards, the list of the non-functional clinic committees, and the expiry dates of the current terms, so that we know how and when to nominate people to, and the process going forward. And then of the functional boards, can we get the attendance register for the last, let's say since last year, June?
My apologies.
Minutes of...
Sorry, Member Mackenzie, can I just interrupt you? Members, can I kindly ask that you mute yourself? There's just some background noise. Please continue. Thank you, Member.
And of the functional boards, if we can, the list of the meetings and the attendance register of the functional boards and the clinics of the last 6 months. So we just see who's working and who's not working. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Mackenzie. Member Barnes.
Thank you, Chair. I only have one. I was not very much satisfied with the response from the department on the terms of reference of appointing of the boards. Perhaps if we can get just one pager, or maybe the minister coming to explain to us how this thing is working, I would be happy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Barnes. Any other member? Member Van Vogel?
Sorry, Chair. Chair, I'm also not clear on the appointments of MPLs. I'm not sure you, perhaps the more experienced people like Member Mackenzie can guide us there. In terms of the appointment of MPLs, how are we going to deal with the issue? As my understanding was, it was a request from the standing committee that we need MPLs to also to serve on that structure. So I just need clarity how to put it, or how are we going to deal with the issue moving forward. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Member Van Vogel. Member Mackenzie, do you wish to provide the committee with some
Yes,
guidance?
Chairperson. On our last term, the way we did it was that individuals that served in a particular constituency, for example, I serve in Mitchells Plain, and then I was then nominated for the Mitchells Plain Hospital Board. So if Member Barnes, for example, is in Beaufort West, then she'd be nominated to serve on that particular hospital board. So it just needs to be a resolution from this committee. And again, it doesn't have to be specific individuals, but just to say these are the members that are willing to serve on the hospital boards in their constituencies, and this is who they are. And obviously, we will need to complete the necessary board nomination form. If we don't have it, I will be willing to send it to the committee coordinator.
Thank you very much, Member Mackenzie. I think that will be most helpful in order for you to send the document to Ms. Jamke, and then can we then resolve that members then send their names to the procedural officer? Can we do that?
Yes, yes.
And then the committee can deliberate on that at soonest. Is that in order, Ms. Jamke? From your side, have you captured those resolutions? And are you happy with the process going forward?
I've captured the resolution, Chair. There were a few that I've captured during the meeting. The first one was the guidelines. The department must provide the committee with the guidelines for the appointment of the members of parliament to the hospital board. I think that is what a member Barnes and member Van Vogel still wants. So I have captured that. The department to provide a list of clinic committees and hospital boards that are constitutional but not functional. That is the other resolution that I have captured. And there was a recommendation by member Van Vogel that says that the departments need a monitoring system for the functionality of the clinics, of the clinic committees and the hospital boards in the province. That is the recommendation. Then there was also a recommendation that the committee need an in-depth understanding of functional but not constitutional in terms of clinic committees. Then we need a list of the hospital boards and clinic committees that are not functional and are not constitutional. Those were the few that I've jotted down during the meeting.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jamke. Honorable Barnes, is that old hand? Thank you very much. Thank you. Member Bosman.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, I also just want to add that maybe what we need to do is to broaden the conversation as well and engage with, perhaps through the Office of the Chief Whip, with all the other members of Parliament as well, to get an understanding of what's happening in their constituencies, so that it's not just members from the social cluster that gets nominated to serve on health boards. And what I also wanted to add to the resolutions is that we perhaps get an attendance tracker or a record of all the members of the public, whether they're municipal councillors or members of the community, who have been appointed to clinic and hospital boards, so we can actually see their attendance, because what we don't want is for people to be nominated again and to be serving on these boards, but they're actually part of the problem that's making these boards dysfunctional by not attending and not participating. Thank you, Chairperson. I'll lower my vote now.
Thank you so much, Member Bosman. Member Mackenzie, anything from you?
Yes, Chairman. Sorry, Member Gillian raised the point, which I admit, because obviously only the 5 members of this committee can't serve 30 hospital boards. It'll be for all members of the Western Cape legislation.
Will do. Thank you. We've got that captured. Members, can we then conclude our resolution and recommendation part of the meeting? Ms. Jamke, if you would be so kind to flag the committee report as the committee embarked on a visit to the West Coast last year, the 28th and the 29th of October. Members, you were also furnished with this document. Kindly check your attendance. You can move along. Sandy Point. Thank you very much, Ms. Jamke. Committee members, are you happy that we adopt the committee report? You will also note that the response of what we have raised within this report was sent to us by the department on the 1st of February. Members will also remember, emanating from this report, that the members wished, or the committee wished, to engage on a broader platform with the various stakeholders, including the local government entity on the West Coast, as well as the health department and the relevant councillors. And I think that will remain on our program. So as soon as our program, we should approve our program, and within the COVID-19 regulations, we should still embark on that engagement as well. But members, for now, are you happy that we adopt this committee report? Members, are you satisfied?
Chairperson, that's perfect.
Thank you, Member Mackenzie. Seconded. Is that you, Member Van Vogel?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you, Member Van Vogel. We will now deal with a quarterly report for July to September 2020. Please check your attendance as well, members. You can move. You can move along. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Jamke. Members, proposal for adoption.
Chairperson.
Member Mackenzie. Thank you. Seconded. Thank you, Member Barnes. Thank you so much. We now deal with the quarterly report for October to December 2020. Thank you, Ms. Jamke. We can move along. Thank you very much, members. Proposal for adoption.
I move, Chair.
Chairperson, I propose.
Thank you, Member Barnes and Member Mackenzie. our last piece, which is the committee program. We've dealt with today, the 16th, our oversight visit to a temporary site in Genadendal. Members, please make sure that you have indicated your means of transport to the procedural officer. Is there any members outstanding, Ms. Jamke? Members that have not yet responded?
I only received a response from member Allen. That's the only member that I received from.
Myself will be in attendance as well, God willing.
Are you driving, Chair? Are you driving or using WCPP?
WCPP transport.
Okay.
Members, while we have you on the line, Member Van Vogel.
I'm going to use my own transport, but I will be in attendance, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Ms. Jamke, just to be clear as well, is this only for permanent members, eh?
That is the communication from the Chief Whip, Chair. That is what was that is what we were told by the Chief Whip. So I do not know exactly how.
Thank you, Member Mackenzie.
Chairperson, as you know, the other committees will also be there. Education and Premier, of which I'm chairing Premier Committee. I know the education will also be there. So for logistics, I'm driving myself, so I'm not sure for the actual venue what they can accommodate. If those committees are there, if perhaps Nomonde can perhaps give guidance. I know from the logistical point, it was only the permanent members to get there. But for committees that are there, if alternate members are there, I'm sure we can participate. If you can just advise us, please. Thanks.
My understanding, Member Mackenzie, is that members of Parliament are welcome to attend any parliamentary meetings. So for this visit, as much as there was an instruction that it's for the members, permanent members of the committee, what is going to happen, since now it's a combined, it's not only for health, it's a combined, committees, which is education, premier, and health. What is going to happen, all the members that will be in that, yes, education, premier, and health, all the members that will be in that committee are going to attend all the sessions if they wish to. We are going to treat it like the cluster visit. When we do cluster visit, we all attend the site, we all go to the site, although we members are not members of that permanent committee.
Okay, sure. Thank you. That provides a lot of clarity. Member Van Vogel, your hand is up.
Chair, I'm a bit confused. So the Friday oversight visit, is it only going to be for those permanent members? If I'm hearing Nomonde correctly.
Are you speaking to the 12th now? Coming Friday?
Yes, Chair. Yes.
I'm sure the same applies to all committees, as Nomonde has just explained. But Mr. Daza, is there anything that you would like to add?
Yes, Chair. Thank you very much and good morning to the members. For these pre-SOPA visits, the Chief Whip has, I think she informed us that she has discussed this matter with the chairpersons, and the agreement was that it should be permanent members who go to visit because of COVID and the numbers that can go to a place. But as Nomonde has said, it has been a practice in Parliament. If any member of Parliament wants to attend any meeting, they are not stopped from doing that. But I think there was a request from the Chief Whip, but it was discussed with the chair. So maybe the chairpersons who are in the Parliament can also tell us, because the Chief Whip always says
the permanent committee must decide if they want to have any alternate members. They are not stopped from being attended, but there was an instruction from the chief that maybe permanent members should. I'm sure on Friday we're taking mostly permanent members of the Cultural Affairs Standing Committee. But to us as officials, we cannot say to members of parliament, you cannot go to a meeting of parliament. It's not in our area. It's decided by members. I think in this instance, the chief whip and the chairpersons can decide, and even the permanent committee of that portfolio can decide. But the format will be, as Nomonde has explained, for both Friday, especially for the 16th, it will be treated as some form of a cluster visit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Daza. Member Windvogel, does that answer your question?
Chairperson, thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Jamke, I think in your communication you have included all members.
Yes, Chair.
Yes, thank you so much. Members, can we proceed with the committee report? Some dates to still be confirmed. Members, I would like to draw your attention to the third last column, unannounced oversight visits to the health facilities in the Cape Metro. I would love members to email myself and the procedural officer. I think from what especially our meeting today and what the outcome of the meeting is and the sentiments that members expressed, that except just for saying we're gonna do an unannounced visit, oversight visit, that we perhaps use the opportunity and the time to see how effectively us as an oversight committee can utilize that space in order to address the challenges that were conveyed today. But I have a few suggestions, but I'm going to leave it open to members to also come up with suggestions or proposals as to how we can actively engage and meaningfully engage concerning clinic committees and hospital boards as we were informed today. So members, yes, I think we should perhaps give you an opportunity until coming Monday at 4, Ms. Jamke, for members to please give their inputs with regards to that specific slot. And then, is that fine? Is that fine with you, members? Thank you. I perceive that as a yes. And then also listed is the engagement that emanates from our West Coast visit and the briefing by various stakeholders in the province to strengthen relations. That also correlates with my comment just made. Members, are you happy that we proceed with the program as presented to us at this time?
Yes, Chairperson.
Thank you, Member Mackenzie and Member Windvogel. Members, any comment from your side at this point? Have we missed anything, Ms. Jamke?
Nothing, Chair, but I just received an apology from Member Keko. So I will note that apology, not now, but during the meeting. So I'll note the apology in the minutes.
Thank you so much. We note his apology. Member Windvogel? Is that an old hand?
Chair, it's an old hand.
Thank you so much, colleagues. Thank you so much for your active participation in this morning's meeting. Thank you so much for your valuable input. And I want to ask members that please do keep our colleagues, our friends, our families, and the broader community in your prayers. It's still a very difficult time. And I wish you all the best. And once again, thank you from my side. And I wish you a blessed day and please be safe. Thank you so much. Thank you very much as well to you, Ms. Jamke, Mr. Daza, and all our ICT support as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Chair. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.